name is Lisa Marissa Dea. I am a faith community nurse here in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I'm the director of the Gastonia Parish Nurse Ministry. I work specifically with First United Methodist Church and First Presbyterian Church here in Gastonia, but do a lot of outreach into the community. I know there's a lot of folks on here that I know, and then there's a lot of folks who, because of the beauty of Zoom, are from a lot of other places here in the state of North Carolina. If you are even outside of North Carolina, please put that in the chat. We would love to see the reach of this program. Last year, almost to the day, a year ago, I held a women's event at First Presbyterian Church, and it was the last in-person event before our normal of the past occurred. Everything had shut down at the next day, and so in over a year, we haven't had any in-person events. And last spring, I had to cancel almost everything that I had planned. And for those of you who know me, I am a long-range planner, and my things are already, I'm planning into next year already. But my focus, I always do lots of different programs and different topics throughout the year, but every year I have a focus. And last year it was mental health and reducing the stigma of people seeking help. And so I had worked really hard on one event that was to take place in May, and it was a big mental health conference, navigating the path to emotional wellness. And of everything that had been canceled, I knew that that one was important. We were in a pandemic, people were anxious, they were getting depressed, they were lonely. And so I got with Alyssa, who's the communications director here at First Methodist, and Celeste Crow at First Pres, and I said, you got to help me. Technology is not my forte, but this is not a topic and this is not a conference I can cancel. And so it was our first attempt at a virtual conference. And so we changed everything on the flyers and started to promote it as a virtual event. And what would have been an in-person maximum attendance last year of about 120 at the fellowship hall at First Pres had over 1,000 viewers, literally from around the world. I had 4 countries represented across the state of North Carolina, all across the US. And it really showed me that there's a lot of power to the Zoom thing that I had never been exposed to before. And so here we are again, the beauty of having something that is a much bigger reach. So at that event in May, I met Kim Leppert, who is one of our speakers today. And because the event was so successful, we did a repeat. We did another mental health seminar virtually in September, and that had well over 500 viewers. And that's when I met Stephanie. And so I just knew after hearing these ladies speak that I wanted to do more programs with them, and I wanted to let more people benefit from the wealth of knowledge that they offer, and how comfortable I was around them and talking to them. They are with a practice called Flyleaf Counseling in Davidson, North Carolina. They're doing in-person counseling, but they're doing telehealth too. So we could talk more about that at the end if you wanted to reach out to them. But so at that time, knowing them, I thought they would be great speakers for my next women's event. I didn't think that 6-7 months later, we would still be where we couldn't gather in person, but I'm thrilled to be able to have this virtual event. We've had over 200 people to register. And again, the rooms are full of more than one person per Zoom. So I think our reach is even much bigger. The focus of my ministry this year is self-care. And so, again, I planned that well before the pandemic, and here we are. We realize that self-care is really important, especially during these challenging times. What I put to self-care are the words intentional and consistent. It doesn't need to be something really expensive or long duration of time to be considered, appropriate self-care. It could be something as simple as getting home after work and putting on a pair of fluffy socks, kicking off your shoes, and relaxing. And so that's why whenever I have these little self-care or relaxation events that I've had them for years, you've always gotten a pair of like fluffy socks from me. So I hope with those of you who were the first 150 to register, you got them in your bags, and I hope you kick off your shoes, put on your fluffy socks, and relax for the evening. If you need to get up from your seat for a minute and go to the door, throw your worries and your concerns outside for a little bit, close the door, come back into your space, because we're going to relax, because this is all about you and me and all the ladies on here to have some time to just, you know, relax and not feel guilty about it. So we're here for ourselves. It's different than if we were in person. So I tried to create an atmosphere. We've had the charcuterie boxes. I know a lot of you are enjoying. We have a little bubbly. I hope you pour yourself a glass of your bubbly. It's all, non-alcoholic for those who are wondering, but it's a great thing. So I hope you enjoy this evening and really gather a lot of information from it and take from it the message that it's okay to do something for yourself every day, because you'll be better for those you care for. Before I introduce my speakers, Avery White is the associate pastor at First United Methodist Church, and she is going to open us with a prayer. So if you would please join me and Avery.
Good evening, everybody. So good to see your faces tonight. I invite you to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Almighty God, we're so grateful for this time together, through the gift of technology with our sisters tonight, and I just feel the joy and the comfort and the camaraderie that we share. We're so grateful for the parish nurse ministry that offers care and connection in so many ways and has brought us together tonight. We're reminded, God, that self-care is important, that it's not selfish, and that we're caring for ourselves, whom you have created. You've given us minds and bodies and hearts and spirits, and ask us to be good stewards of them. So we ask, God, that you fill us, fill our minds, fill our hearts, fill our souls, fill our bodies, for we know that empty cups cannot pour into others. So fill us so that we can then pour into and serve others. We thank you for the food that we're enjoying and pray that it would nourish and fill us so that we can be who you have created us to be. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
One thing I failed to mention before I introduce our speakers, I am sitting, I don't know if you could see these door prizes on the table behind me, but there's lots and lots of door prizes that I'm going to do a drawing at the end. And so you need to be present to take advantage of that. And just kind of wanted to mention that there's some great things. I've posted the picture of the table on Facebook if you wanted to peek at that. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. Both these ladies are from Flyleaf Counseling in Davidson, North Carolina. Kim Leppert has been working with individuals, couples, and families for 25 years. Since 2013, she has been educating and assisting people in their journey of recovery from sexual addiction, pornography, addiction, partner betrayal, and improving coupleship intimacy. She conducts individual sessions and couple sessions, as well as facilitating weekly recovery groups. She's a trauma therapist by nature and has a background working with domestic violence and sexual assault. She's trained in multiple trauma and maintains certification with the Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals and her EMDR certification through Emdr. Stephanie Jester has been working with individuals, couples, and families for nearly 20 years. She has been educating and assisting people in their journey of recovery from sexual addiction, pornography addiction, partner betrayal, and couple intimacy. She also conducts individual and couple sessions, as well as facilitating weekly recovery groups. She's trained in multiple trauma protocols and has a strong trauma background, including working with veterans in their PTSD clinic. She is certified as a sexual addiction therapist with the International Institute of Trauma and Addiction Professionals and maintains her EMDR certification through Emdr. She recently completed her requirements for certification in brain spotting and is awaiting certification for that. Both of these ladies have weekly videos and chats on Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. I encourage you to check those out through their Facebook page. There's a library of things that you could benefit from on all kinds of different topics. But I am just so grateful that my colleagues and my friends, Stephanie and Kim, are here with us tonight. And I'm just going to turn this over to the two of you. So thank you very, very much for being here with us.
We are so excited to be with you guys tonight.
We are so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. We are so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Lisa. So yeah, since you sounds like we've done a lot of stuff when you read all of that. And we're always doing more stuff and adding to our skill set, because that's kind of the way that works. That's part of our self-care, is just increasing our knowledge and increasing our learning and feeding into our minds. We do that constantly, and it is something we do together. So that's also like friend care too.
Right.
So I do want to say this, though. I know everybody's muted, but if there's any time when we're talking, if you want to say something, there's a button on there. You can raise your hand, or you can put something in the chat. If you want to make a comment that maybe Lisa or Alyssa can say, hey, this person has something to say. We totally want it to be a conversation. Also, we can't read the chat because our eyes are it's not good enough to read it. So if you put something in there and we're not responding to it, it's because, like, honestly, we can't read it.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of put that out there for everybody.
I can keep tabs on it for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something?
Absolutely not.
I love, Lisa, what you said about self-care not needing to have a lot of money, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I mean, it really doesn't. It's really about getting back to basics. And we look at self-care as fuel, right? Because the analogy that we like to use is that if you're going across country, you can't do it on one tank of gas. What's going to happen? You're going to break down. You're going to need to pull over. We have to pull over, refresh, rejuvenate, refuel so we can go the distance. And self-care really allows us the ability to do that.
So as we're going through this evening, I just want you to keep in mind, self-care is those big things too, right? It's treating yourself whenever you feel the need or you have extra time. It's doing those extra kind things for yourself and not kind of waiting for somebody else to anticipate that you have a need. Self-care is asking for your needs or meeting your own. But the main point we want to drive home tonight is that self-care is truly those things that you do every day for yourself. It's those things that keep you moving and keep you going so that you can be there for the people in your life. I don't know how many of you are moms or grandmothers or spouses or friends. We all have all these different hats. And in order for us to be there for the people that we care about, we have to be our best self.
Yeah. When we talk about basics, and we were sitting here talking about like all the different ways that we do self-care, right? And as we're sitting here, we're drinking our tea, we're drinking our water, things that we do on a daily basis that help us go the distance. You guys were talking about I'm going to mess up this word, charcuterie. I struggle with that word. I don't know why. It's just some people can't say cinnamon. I can't say charcuterie. But it's okay. But it was absolutely delicious and delightful. And I took a moment to be mindful of everything that I was putting in my mouth, and everything tasted delectable. And I was so gracious and experiencing such gratitude for having it. It was just amazing.
Really good. But we can't say it.
Yeah, we're not going to say it anymore.
So part of self-care too is also things like going to the doctor when you need a regular appointment. Like one of the things that we tend to do as women is put our health behind everybody else's health. So we don't go get our mammograms when we're supposed to, or we put off going to our annual exams, or we go put off all of those things that we do for ourselves because we're too busy taking other people to their things. And we can say no to ourselves way easier than we feel like we can say no to other people. And so part of this is understanding that the ability to say yes to yourself and to honor your space and to keep things for yourself sacred isn't selfish, which is where we got that self-care is not selfish. Saying no to somebody sometimes so that you can care for yourself is actually going to make you better for them when you can see them, when you can have conversations with them.
And I'm glad that you brought that up. We were talking about how saying no, like what Kim just said, is part of self-care. Implementing boundaries is part of self-care. Living a life of assertion in both behavior and how you communicate is self-care. It's a matter of saying that I'm here and I do matter. Sometimes it's not doing anything. Sometimes it's the smallest gesture of turning technology off, muting something, and just sitting in silence, and how we can reconnect with ourselves and our higher power in that moment.
Right. And I talk a lot about how we all have friends, or we all know people that sometimes when they call us or they reach out to us, we know that it's going to be a big thing. It's going to be a conversation. It's going to be something we have to sit down and get a cup of coffee and sit down, or a glass of wine and sit with because it's going to be a minute when we're there. And if we don't know, or if we don't have the energy for that conversation, having it with that person isn't helping them. Stretching yourself beyond your capacity to give to somebody else isn't helping that other person get what they need. And so sometimes in those moments, it's okay to say, you know what, tonight's not the night to have this. Can we talk tomorrow? And then when you can be there for them, then you can be there fully. And that's what we're talking about when we say being there for everybody else and taking those few 5 minutes. That's a big part of it. And that's where saying no comes in too.
Absolutely. Because what happens is we overextend ourselves, and then sometimes we can get angry and resentful. And it's nobody else's fault but our own, because it was our responsibility to communicate that right now is not a good time. I can't give you what it is that you're seeking. Let me get back with you at another time where I'm available. And that is such a healthy thing to do.
Conversation for another day, by the way, is setting boundaries and having healthy boundaries in your life. But having boundaries is part of this too. And boundaries, just a little nugget on boundaries. Boundaries are something that we do that keep ourselves safe, spiritually, emotionally, and physically safe. If that's not the definition of self-care, I don't know what is. That's really all we're doing, is making sure that we have everything that we need.
Right. We included, we sent Lisa different ways of looking at self-care, depending on how it is that you want to conceptualize it for yourself. Some people respond to checklists. Some people respond to filling out wheels. Some people need ideas around potentially creating some ideas around self-care. So we gave all of this to you guys and hope that you explore it, because our clients have had a good time with it. And so we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about some of them.
Before we do that, are there any questions, or does anybody have anything they want to add to what we're saying? Because we certainly want this to be a conversation.
Good?
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Well, then we will.
This is Beth Silvers. I loved your comment about the ability to say no. And that is probably the hardest thing. I am both a mother, a grandmother, a stepmother, a step-grandmother, and a step-great-grandmother.
Wow.
And it's hard sometimes when one of those shows up and says, Nana Beth or Miss Beth, can you do XYZ? And I just came home from hard day work at the hospital, and I'm like, it's hard to say that. Let's do it later.
Right.
So, but thank you for that.
You're welcome. I experienced that in my life when I have two kids. Stephanie's got stepchildren, and after a long day here, sometimes we're back to back for hours in sessions. And when I get home, I just don't have the bandwidth for a lot of craziness. And when I come home, I have to take a step back and go in my room, change my clothes, get my head right, do something a little different for myself, use my commute sometimes a little longer than usual, just to get myself ready and prepared to be there for home, because I can't walk into a bunch of crazy. And my kids and my husband, they're aware of that. So when I walk in, I don't get met with that. But you're right. Sometimes we have to be able to say, I'm like, you guys don't know what I did all day. But Beth, you work in a hospital. You got a hard day.
Mind readers, right? We have to be the ones to assert ourselves and say, not right now, maybe over here, or I just can't do that at this moment. Let me get back with you when I can. That's our responsibility to communicate that. Nobody else is mind reading. So have the power of saying no. It's one of the most basic gifts we can give ourselves, and it's healthy. And there's different ways of saying no too. I mean, no is a full sentence, number one. But you can, I can't right now, maybe later, let me get back with you. No, unless something changes, I'll, circle around.
No, I don't want to.
I don't want to, and that's good. So
Another option is
lots of different ways.
Yeah, another option that my husband and I have is sometimes when I come home from the office or from work or from traveling, I'll be venting. And in the first, he's being the typical husband and wants to fix everything, you got to fix that. And it didn't take long before we realized this is not fixing anything. And so we now have, he looks at me and he says, vent or fix.
Yes.
If I say vent, then he goes and he just listens and he hears. But if I say fix, then he's got to come up with a solution about whatever it is I just threw on his lap.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant.
yeah, it took us a little while to figure it out, but it's worked really well for the last few years.
Oh, I love that.
Good
As
for
a
you.
newlywed, I really like that.
Yes.
You know, as a matter of fact, I was reading a book recently on raising teenage girls. It's a wonderful book. It's a fascinating book. What is the name of it? Untangled. If you're in need of such a book, it's a wonderful resource. But I was reading this book and they were saying, don't forget that teenage girls, just because they're talking doesn't mean they need you to answer or solve their problems. They might be venting. So they said the same thing, Beth, where they said, when your daughter comes to you and she's talking or going off about a friend or a problem, you have to teach her. There's a difference between venting and asking for something, and it's okay to tell me what you need.
Right.
And so they talk about teaching that to your adolescents, which I think is beautiful. Other questions?
Oh, what do we want to
I
start
know
with?
I had another thought and it went out of my head about, it'll come to me, y'all, I'm sorry. But I want us to look at this sheet. I don't know if you guys have it in front of you, this purple sheet, this personal care index. A wonderful, amazing therapist named Stacy Sprout kind of adapted this from another source. And what it essentially is, and it was designed to use for people who have addiction problems or anything like that. And that's how it was designed originally. But we found that using it for our everyday clients and for ourselves every day has been really helpful. So we thought it was something to share with you. And I'm not going to spend a whole time on doing it, but I'll just introduce it to you and the purpose of it. Let me put this down. So if you look at the personal care index, it's divided into 10 categories. And these 10 categories are things that we do throughout our lives and throughout our day. And when we're at our best and we're functioning at our best, how do these things show up in our lives? So it's everything from our physical health. Are we drinking enough water? Are we getting exercise? Transportation. Am I running on empty, literally, on my tank in the car? Or am I filling it up? Is it dirty? That's one of the things it talks about. So there's all these different ways that we can show up in healthy ways. And so what this is asking you to do is just to say, what are the 3 things that I noticed that I'm doing well when I'm functioning well in each of these 10 categories? In the last category, it says other addiction and symptom behaviors. And what that means is in those areas, it means, what is it I'm trying to work on myself? Am I trying to maybe, work on some conflict resolution? Am I trying to be better at communicating? What is it that I'm working on to better myself? Because it's going under the assumption that we're all kind of on this journey of bettering ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Do you want to finish?
Well, what's great about this sheet is that one, it reframes it into care. How are we caring for ourselves? But it encourages you to break it down and to actually track how it is that you're showing up and being intentional in your life. It has you track about 7 different areas. And for 4 weeks, I think, you're tracking. The higher the number you get means the higher the optimal health I'm providing for myself, because I'm showing up that much more in my life. And when we're showing up that much more in our life, we have more energy and more ability to go the distance for first ourselves and then for others.
Right. And so when you're doing your sheet, it comes on this back page here. It says that you write down what are the top 7 things I know. If I'm doing these things, of all of those 30 things that I wrote down, what are the top 7 that let me know I'm functioning well? For me, it's if the laundry's caught up. If I have piles and piles of laundry, I know that there's some stress in my life because I'm not getting to it, because that drives me crazy. And then if I get underneath all of that, then there's other areas of my life that start to fall apart. But one of the first signs that I'm getting stressed out is that my laundry starts to get built up. And this is based on the understanding that our life starts to fall apart a little bit before we know that it's doing it. Mm-hmm. We see it in the way that we behave. We see it in the way that we're not making these doctor's appointments. We see it when we are not eating right. All of a sudden, I'm eating a bunch of fast food, or I'm not keeping up with my water intake. And so when you start to chart every day, 1 through 7, how many of these 7 things did I do for myself today? And you go through the week, you add it up. And like Stephanie said, the higher the number, the better optimal health you have. The lower the number, that alerts me before my mind catches up with my behavior. that I need to be looking at something. I'm having some stress in my life and I need to start making changes before I get to the point where I'm like grumpy or getting depressed or whatever it is. The other thing that it does, which is one of my favorite things, is when I'm feeling sad and depressed and I haven't paid attention to those things in my life, I know physically what I can do to make myself feel better. If I get caught up with the laundry, I'm going to feel better. I know that if my car gets dirty, I go clean it, I'm going to start to feel better. So it's also a pathway out of some of these negative ego states that we find ourselves in.
Right.
So are there any thoughts or questions about that?
I don't know about you ladies, but when I'm not running fully, or if I'm on empty and I'm barely, like I'm actually on fumes, physiologically, my body starts to shut down. My brain gets foggy. I'm not sleeping well. I think some of my respiratory, I don't have the energy to go work out. Like I really begin to start to deteriorate and shut down.
And my skin gets greasy and I just feel
Yeah.
gross.
Yeah. So making the smallest little change in one area is going to give you enough to expand that out into the other areas. You cannot touch one without impacting the others.
Right.
So as negatively it can happen, it also happens conversely positively.
Right. Questions?
I know. Although let's just be honest, sitting in quiet and silence is a good thing too. We're able to rejuvenate in that.
I wish I could read your comments. I can't see them. Okay. I cannot see them. So that's this sheet. And it really is just about those daily things. And it talks about some meditations. It talks about when you can have time for prayer, adding in time for those things and making sure that you're taking care of yourself.
And let's be honest, some of the things that we talk about might not be as rewarding as they are to other people. It's very subjective. It's about finding what's meaningful to you. When I was doing a women's trauma group when I used to work for the military, we were talking about self-care, and I had this long list, and I'll be happy to share it with you guys if you want it. Lisa, I can send it to you, but it's about 150 different things to do for self-care or positive activities. Well, some of them on there, I was like, I wouldn't find that happy and joyful at all. One of them was put your old prom dress on. And I was like, that is horrendous. Why would I do that? Like, I had no sense of taste back then. And I probably won't fit in it. Let's be honest. Like, I don't find that fun.
And
other people might.
And so we have this green sheet with this list of self-care activities that you can look at. And like she said, some of these things you're going to be like, that's great. And then some of them, one of them says make a movie or video. No, I do that. This is as good as I get. I'm not making a video. But but some people, like, you go on TikTok and everybody's doing these things. So you find all of these different ways for self-care. So yeah, some of these things you're going to go like, no. And then some of them you're going to go, well, you know what? I never thought I would try that. I'm going to give it a shot. And just remember, self-care doesn't mean adding things to your list of already busy things to do.
Yeah.
I mean, when we mention self-care, this is what people look at us and they go, oh God, I got enough things to do. I don't have time for this. And so we have to make sure that you understand it isn't about doing additional things. It's just doing the things that make you feel like you're functioning.
Right. It's reward, not chore.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be.
If it's chores, it's not care.
We're really not going to show up for it.
Right. Or those will be the first to be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
So Stephanie, why don't you talk about this cool wheel? This is her thing she found.
So the second thing that we wanted to share with you guys is these two wheels. They're connected or stapled together. The first one talks about all the different ways that we find balance in our life. So it's talking about spiritual, physical, professional, all the different caps that we wear outside of ourselves and in ourselves, and what is meaningful, generating some ideas about how to create balance for yourselves. Well, these are great ideas, but it's not that fun unless we have a wheel to fill out ourselves. So the second page is a blank wheel for you guys to create your own self-care wheel with.
We want to hear from you. What are the areas that you ladies, what are the areas that you find the most difficult for you? Where do you struggle the most with self-care?
I think for me, it is knowing what I know what I need to do, but actually doing it. I mean, I know I need to exercise. I know I need to eat right. I know. If I did all these things, I would just feel wonderful. But for me, it's like the little angel and devil, like, yes, this is what you need to do to feel better. And the devil's like, yeah, do that tomorrow. So I think there's a lot of negative self-talk that goes along with that. But my problem is finding my why. Oh, can you still hear me? Finding my why or my motivation, that piece that I need to actually do it.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, well, I was just thinking, I'm wondering if I go ahead and start doing it, knowing that I have this negative devil talk that's, like telling me not to do it and to get in my own way. I'm wondering if I just make a pact with myself to go in and start doing it, I'll have that wellness and that fuel to battle that thing. Right?
And some of the ones you have in a chat are exercise. They struggle with that. Having time, really, and work and personal life balance, physically and professionally. Jenna said, I'm struggling with all the things lately. I can agree, Jenna. Coming out of my box is scary, but once I do, I'm okay with it. Emily has a really good suggestion for me. It starts with reading my Bible, helps me start my day, and make me more motivated to eat healthy and exercise.
Yeah. And sometimes we have to take these big concepts like physical health or working out and making them into much more chunked down doable tasks, right? Because if I just focus on I need to work out, that can seem overwhelming. But if I say I'm going to go for a 5-minute, 10-minute walk 3 times per week, it's much more doable. And then I can build from that.
Right, and so that's going to take. It's about chunking it into little pieces, making small steps to get to the steps. And I also want to say, think about what you are already doing that brings you joy. Even if I know I need to add 5 things, what are the things I'm already doing? What do I already like? And notice that you're already doing things for self-care, because it feels less shaming when you do nothing. And if you already like something, the great part is you can do that more. So it may be that exercise is not going to be part of my self-care. I know that it should be, but for whatever reason, whether it's time or energy or whatever it is, I don't have it. But you know what I do have? I read a lot. So let me read, let me have my hour to read and not shame me for not doing what somebody else might do for their own care. So think about the things that you already do and note them, which is what that one sheet is about, right? Is noting what I already do and then expanding on it and doing it more. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Right. Oh, the wheel.
You have a wheel.
The wheel. What else do we got from the lovely ladies?
I heard a great suggestion about self-care, and it involved the dishwasher. And I wouldn't typically think of that being something that people do for self-care, but it was someone saying that they just didn't have the energy to unload their dishwasher to put the new ones in, right? And the suggestion was wash the other ones twice. Don't empty it. Just put the dishes in and run the button twice instead of doing it. And it sounds silly, but if that could get you through the day of not having that stress at the end of the night, right?
Yeah, do what works.
Something like really off the wall or out of the box, but it worked. It worked for that person, and it's it's silly, but I've had times where same thing. Just don't want to do what you got to do. And
right. And sometimes we need that level of intention that you were talking about in the beginning, Lisa. If we're not used to doing it, it can be completely overwhelming at first. And so maybe if we're in front of a computer or in front of people throughout the day, sometimes we'll just need to set a reminder on our Fitbit or something to go off that says, take 5 deep breaths right now and just, think about something that you're grateful for, or go outside for 5 minutes just for a little bit of differentiation in your day, finding different ways to infuse normalcy, joy, connectivity into our life. I said joy. That's Kim's word.
My word
There's
is
a lot of
joy.
stuff in the chat. Patty says that COVID has depleted us more than ever. I
Yeah.
definitely agree. Feeling guilty to take time for ourselves. Jenny says she has a 4-month-old and a 3-year-old, and she's an executive assistant and wife. So her life is immersed in taking care of others. I think that's a big one. People are taking care of others more than themselves. For me, it's giving myself the approval to do it. Kay says when she goes for a walk, she makes a deliberate effort to notice the sky and the trees and the flowers, and tells herself that it's a beautiful day and to smile. Emily says reading a chapter a day from the Bible helps. She's been reading Exodus every day of Lent. Kathy says sometimes you feel guilty taking time for yourself.
Can I just talk about guilt real fast? Guilt means that I think that I've done something wrong. Feeding yourself and fueling yourself to be there for yourself and for others can never be wrong.
And I want you to write this down. I want you to note this. Self-care is giving the best of myself to people, not what's left of myself.
Right.
We have to be able to give our best if we are that person with the littles. I remember when mine were little, and I remember hiding in the bathroom to eat because that was the only time I could get time by myself and nobody would bother me. And then they always seemed to find me and I would be like, oh, but you know, or if they were taking a nap, then that would be the time where I would feel like I should be cleaning the house right now and I should be doing all the chores right now. But you know what, if they're taking a nap, I'm going to take some time and just sit outside for a minute and get some sun. And just giving myself, like somebody else said, the permission to do that, and knowing that if I give myself that 15 minutes, then I'm going to be better and more patient and reset my body for those kids that are going to just get my high energy the rest of the day. But you've got to reset.
I saw a comment come through that wanted you to repeat that phrase about giving the best of myself.
So self-care is about giving the best of yourself, not what's left of yourself.
Right.
So Stephanie, and please interrupt us if we're just talking and you have something you want to say or somebody has a comment. I just say, hey, wait, hold up, because we can't see what's going on other than just kind of the screen here. But I talk about joys a lot, and I have a take on joys that might be a little bit different than other people. I don't know, maybe you've heard something similar to this. I am not such a great big fan of gratitudes, and I know that's not a popular idea, but let me tell you why. I think that there are people that have a lot of wonderful, beautiful things in their lives, and they're still sad, or they're still depressed, or they've gotten all of the things that they've asked for, and God has given them and blessed them with those things, and it's still not enough to fulfill them. And then when we go to do a gratitude, it feels shaming. I feel like I have all these things and I should feel better, but I don't. And we use that word should. So gratitudes can often be wonderful, beautiful things, but sometimes they can feel very shaming. So instead of examining those things that I have and being grateful for them, what I encourage people to do is to do what one of you do, which is walking down the street and looking at the sky, is finding joys. So the word gratitude is this big, and the word joy is this big, and joys really are this big. Joys are smelling my coffee in the morning before I get out of bed. I can smell it brewing. Joys are walking in the sun. Joys are seeing smiles instead of masks, right? Joys are so small. Joys are hitting every green light on my way to work.
Oh.
Joys are when I think I'm going to be late, but I get there on time. There are just so many of them throughout our day, and if we don't recognize them, we pass them over, and then one bad thing might happen, and then we're just stuck with this horrible day that we had, and we've missed out on all of these joys that we've been blessed with. So I tell people to do this at the end of every day, just 1 or 2 words. It doesn't even have to be like a whole sentence or a story. Just pick a joy and put it on a piece of paper, on a paper calendar on your refrigerator, and you can write the sun. You can write, I don't care, my child's smile.
No rain.
Yeah, the way my husband smelled today, his cologne or whatever it was, the smell of my freshly washed child, whatever it is, put your joy down. And at the end of the month, you will see you had joy every day. But if your goal is to write down one, guess what you're going to be looking for? You're going to be looking for joys to write down. So you're going to end up at the end of the day going, I can only pick one. I had like 7. I don't know what to pick. And you're going to start noticing things that in and of itself is going to increase your serotonin, and it's going to lift you up every day.
Right. It does change the brain chemistry. It does. There's science that backs it up.
So we'll pause and see. Thoughts, comments, questions? What do you see as your joys? What are some of the joys you've experienced just even today?
I had to go out after the storms that came through, and it was 68 degrees and it was so sunny and the sun felt so great, and it just like fed my soul. And so I really appreciated that this late afternoon.
Absolutely.
Same here.
I like that one.
I'm joyful at longer days. I like the sun.
So I have to tell you, when we came on, we were muted, so you couldn't hear us talking, and we were watching you ladies talk to each other. Clearly, you know each other, and that was our joy. We were like, "Oh my God, I love them! They're so awesome!" Everybody was just so happy to see each other and seeing everybody come together. That was our joy today.
Right.
We've got some in the chat. Debbie said a pic of her grandson being goofy. Stephanie Elliott said having her college freshman son tell her how much he's enjoying his classes virtually from his bedroom. Debbie said her joy is a short hello text from her out-of-state grandchildren. Amanda said giggles from her children playing. And my personal joy is the charcuterie box that we got.
It was quite fantastic, I have to say. I had joy at everybody.
That was awesome. So I have.
Are there other comments or questions about joy? And I mean, it really can be and needs to be the most basic.
Earlier came back and then it went again. You know, one of my joys is getting older because I see the world in a different perspective, and I kind of have this like look back and see things, and I don't want to be younger again because I find wisdom in the world that I've experienced, and I know that I'm moving forward. My eyes are going, my memory's starting to go, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like, you know, I'm entering a new phase in my life, which is actually exciting. And so that's a joy for me, this self-acceptance that comes with having been on this planet for a little while. I like that.
I know for me, joy, I experience tons of joy in nature, and I try to be in it as much as I can, not necessarily having to do something physical in it, but just being in it and feeling all of the elements is so, I don't know, I thrive in it. So one of our colleagues loves to go, like when we talk about basics, one of our colleagues loves to get barefoot and put her toes in grass and like feel the elements in the grass surrounding her, and she feels really connected. It's just true. It was just great.
Sylvie says I'm gonna log in some hammock time.
Yeah.
Just get in her backyard and sit on her hammock.
We've got a lot more in the chat. Emily says getting coffee from the Human Being. Is that a coffee shop?
Yeah.
That sounds great. I've never been there. And it's nice to enjoy the outside world. Holly says having grandchildren are awesome, her joy. Shelly says this workshop is giving her joy.
Oh, yeah.
Lisa says joy from my last family member getting her COVID vaccination, making us all a little safer. Becky Green says that she likes to ask, what is my life at dusk? That wasn't there this morning.
Oh, I love
That wasn't there at dawn, she said. Sharon's favorite joys are hearing the birds sing. Jenny said making my baby laugh by running away from the rain outside this morning. And Debbie was saying the sun at 7:18 is really nice.
Very nice.
Notice that these things did not cost money and take a lot of your time. I mean, if there's one thing that we're talking about and want to really drive home is that self-care does not mean money and time. It just doesn't.
So I want to share too something that has come up a lot. Somebody mentioned this time during COVID where we're kind of not seeing smiles, we're quarantining, we're not getting able to give hugs. And when we do go out in public, people are standing far away from you, or it's almost like, and I share this story often, that somebody, and this was about this time last year or early last year, or anyway, early in the quarantine, but I was in the store somewhere and somebody dropped some paper and I went to pick it up and she looked at me and she went, "Don't touch that." And I was like, "Oh, well, okay." And I thought, I can't even be nice to people anymore. I can't even just do what I normally would do. And doing those things make me feel good. And so there is a collective depletion of serotonin going on. That is a biological thing that is happening as our world has been shut off from other things. As humans, we need serotonin in order to feel good. And we get those hits of serotonin by those joys. We get hits of serotonin by sitting next to somebody and feeling their energy. We get them just through our everyday activities, smiles. All of these things that we've been depleted from are things that where we get natural serotonin. So there is this literal collective depression that is happening, and it's a biological thing. It isn't because, oh, I just missed somebody. It's a real thing. So I want to encourage you to you can look it up on the internet. What are foods that contain serotonin? Pineapple contains serotonin. You can increase your serotonin by some of the foods you eat. So pineapple, turkey is one of them. What else was there? I can't remember the rest. There's a whole list of them that maybe there's a whole list of them that you can. I just know pineapple because I happen to love it and I'm just happy to eat it all the time. But yep, pineapple. So that's one of them. But then also the sun gives you serotonin. Exercise gives you serotonin. All of the things that everybody always says, like, do these to feel better, are all natural hits of serotonin. And so I want to kind of circle back to what I said before. If there's something you're already doing that feels good, what is happening is that thing that you're doing is increasing your serotonin. Right. So if you want to increase your serotonin, you don't have to add a bunch of stuff. Do more of what works. Do more of what feels good. It's not, that's the easy part. The hardest part is recognizing what those things are, because we're just so used to doing them.
And piggybacking on what Kim just said is so important. It's not about quantity of what we're doing. It's about the quality of what we're doing.
Right. Sometimes a self-care list feels like too much to do.
Right.
So this is Vicki. I just wanted to tell you about an experience I had yesterday.
Okay.
I work at the hospital in Gastonia, but I live in Huntersville. I'm actually in Wilmington right now with my sister. We're eating a salad right now. But anyway, yesterday I stopped by the grocery store on the way home, and I just needed to run in and get some sour cream and some cheese. So I got my wallet and I got out of my car, and I'm halfway through the parking lot. And I meet this woman and she said, "Oh, it's so nice to see your face." I was like, "Oh, I forgot my mask." And I ran back to get my mask, but it was just like really nice, because we forget.
Yeah.
In 1 year, we've forgotten. And it was just a really nice, I didn't know her, but she was just, giving me a comment. And I thought, that's just really nice.
It is nice.
And it kind of tells us how much we've missed.
I talk about so wearing masks everywhere, and we're at the store, and I'll try to make eye contact with people because that's all that you can see, right? And I'm a really social person. I love talking to people, strangers, haven't met one. Like, I'm just like out there. And we're having to wear these masks all the time. And I'm like, people are like, kind of like not wanting to make eye contact. They're just like, "Are you too close to me?" Like, it's making it uncomfortable. And I'm under here, my mask, smiling aggressively. Look at my eyes. I'm a really happy, nice person. Like, it's just crazy what all of this has done. But the same thing happened to me in office actually a couple months ago. I wasn't even thinking, but I went and I hugged one of my clients, and she turned around and she said, "Oh my God, I didn't realize how much we are in deprivation of touch right now." And it just stopped me in my tracks. And I said, "You know what? You're right." I'm like, I feel it on my level. I didn't even think about it, which was probably, maybe she didn't want me to hug her, but apparently she did. So it was okay. But we are in a state of deprivation, and deprivation we do not grow in.
Right.
We have a few more in the chat. Sorry, I'm eating my crackers.
That's okay. I love everybody's doing. That makes me so happy.
I know.
Emily said the joy of being authentic. Love that.
Yes.
Vicky said digging in the dirt. Worms mean you have good dirt.
Perfect.
Gail said that her joy today was feeding and trimming her house plants. They looked better and happy to have food. Very simple, but felt good.
Mm-hmm.
Laura said her joy is spending time with her mom this evening doing this workshop.
Aw. You guys rock.
Yeah, I love girls' night.
Mm-hmm.
And Clara said, or Hannah said, joy of spending time with her mom, aunts, and cousin. They're all in the house together, hanging out. And my joy is seeing there are 180 of you on here. That's crazy to me.
Wow, that is what a great girls' night.
Well, congratulations, ladies. Good for you.
Exactly, good for everybody to come out. Yeah, so I think the mask thing is important to keep in mind, that we're not talking to each other anymore. If I'm in line behind you at the grocery store, chances are I'm gonna just say something to you, because that's how I do. Or if I see somebody has some cute shoes on, I am always gonna compliment them on their cute shoes. I will say, hey, yeah, cute shoes. I just love them. And so there are things that we do that when we give compliments or we tell people something kind, it makes them feel good, which makes us feel good, right? So we can create our own joy by doing kind things for other people. Unfortunately, it's almost like for the past year, it's been almost impossible for us to create that joy. It's been really difficult for us to create connections with strangers. And so I'm really hoping that in the next year, my fingers crossed, that we're gonna find those ways to make those connections again. This is one beautiful way to do that. I'm just so grateful to be able to have these conversations with you ladies, because this is important. We need a forum for this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we need to break through those falsities that self-care is selfish, right? I mean, it's fuel.
And Debbie said finding her favorite color pin, purple, still has ink in it. Makes her happy.
Oh.
I love the fact that you are focusing on the fact that self-care does not need to be something that's expensive or, timely. Because when I first started to promote the focus of my ministry for this year, saying that self-care is important and you need to be intentional about it, I actually had, quite a number of people come back and kind of challenge me in a friendly way. And just the overall concept was, they were saying that they didn't have time for self-care. They didn't have the funding to go to a spa, to spend $300 take a day off from work to go spend all that money. And I just tried to convey that it didn't need to take money or time, lots of time to do that. And so I think one of my goals for tonight, and you're definitely hitting it, is encouraging people and convincing them that it is the simple things that we can bring into our world, and having a plan for it, just kind of doing those little things. I know I tend to be on the go all the time and don't always make myself a priority, or I should say, I didn't always make myself a priority. And back at the end of the year, I decided that moving into 2021, I was going to lead by example. If I was going to encourage everybody else to have, make self-care a priority, that I was going to do it for myself. And I've made some really significant modifications to my schedule so that I could do that. And they're little things, but they're important to me. And I feel like a new person. I really do. I feel invigorated just because it's consistency with that. And other people are noticing it. And it's not anything that's costing me money or significant amounts of time. And I'm hoping that other people leave this conversation, if they're not already doing that, just kind of creating a plan for themselves moving forward.
Absolutely. Some of the things that we do already that maybe we need to be more mindful of too. Technology, have those power down times where I'm not intrusive. We're connected to our cell phones, internet 24/7, high definition. It follows us everywhere. Give yourself permission to just drive home in silence, or give yourself permission to turn off the TV early and just kind of meditate and get grounded with your higher power, with yourself, and like transition into a nice evening before you go to bed. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm listening to you. My brain is I have some,
We share a brain,
We do
FYI.
share
We
a
do
brain.
share one. Okay.
Well. So, but the idea of transitions, you have to understand, somebody mentioned work and home balance. The idea of transition is so incredibly important. We have to know how to transition from our mom self to our work self, back to our mom self, to our spouse self. All of these things require transition time. We have to really be intentional at not giving that a flow. It's not a fluid thing. We can't just like throw the hats on as we're running down the road. We have to have some method of transitioning. And the primary one that I talk a lot about, well, you were just talking about transitioning to bed. And I always say we transition from work to home and home to work, and we have to make those. So there was a study done, and I honestly cannot remember when the study was done, and I don't even remember where I heard this, but I know I'm not making this up. There was a study that was done that said, if your commute from home or from work to home is less than 20 minutes, and you walk straight in the door and start engaging with your family, within 30 minutes of being in the door, there's going to be a conflict, because that transition didn't happen. And I'm sure, and I'm seeing some heads nodding because you know that this is true. What has happened recently is our transition is from the couch to the kitchen.
Right.
We have no transition. Kids are home, parents are home, everybody's at home working, spouses are home, and we are not transitioning. And even before COVID, we talked a lot about transitions. I spent a lot of time with my people talking about transitions and saying, change your clothes.
Yeah.
When you get home, get out of work clothes and get into home clothes. Put on your play clothes like you did when you were a kid, so that you have a mindset change. And one of our colleagues even said, when you're playing a sport, you're wearing a uniform of that sport. And when you're in that sport, you are in that sport, you're in the uniform. Put on your be home uniform. That's different from your work one. They can't be the same thing. If you do these things and give yourself 5 minutes in your room of quiet to change clothes and come out, you're not depleting anybody of anything, but you're able to give your best to the people that you're there with. So those transitions are super important. Sleep is self-care. If I'm laying in bed and I can't sleep, well, I mean, that's a problem. Having time to be in bed is one thing, but actually sleeping is something else. So if I'm able to transition with a nighttime routine, powering down, turning off those blue screens, doing those things so that when I do go to bed, my body is ready for rest, that's a gift I can give myself. So there are all of these different things that we can do that are considered self-care that aren't taking time away, but they are feeding into ourselves. So those are just some other important things to think about.
And one of the other ways of self-care is turning off the news. We get bombarded with negativity all the time, and it has such an impact on our at a molecular level in our bodies. Turn it off. Give yourself a break. There's nothing new that's on that 24-hour news cycle that you're not going to hear 70 times throughout the day. Turn it off. Feed yourself. Going to a spa, I would love to be able to do that. I don't. Get some Epsom salt, which is like $1 out of Walgreens. They have different scents now, like lavender, teal, or it's Mr. Teal's, spearmint and eucalyptus. Light a Wicks candle and have at it. I mean, sit in a tub and soak away. There are different things that we can do very, very minimally with cost and that are actually free.
We've got some more comments here. Emily says Mother Teresa is who she's continuing to look up to about being kind to other people, strangers or not. I feel we are losing that in some ways. So back when we were talking about masks and trying to be kind without having to be assertive. Sophia, thanks for joining us, Sophia. Sorry, your internet keeps messing up. Judy says, I love my Alexa. I can have her play upbeat music in the daytime to pep me up, dance around as I'm doing housework, and then have her play soft, gentle music at night to wind me down.
Awesome.
Debbie said, watching the relationship between you two ladies makes her smile. Sarah
It makes
says,
me smile too, Judy.
Sarah says that she sits in her car for 10 minutes before she walks in, or in the grocery parking lot before getting groceries. Janet says that as soon as she gets home, she changes clothes and gets on the floor and snuggles, plays with her dogs. I do the same thing.
Me too.
Sophia said she recently learned how to turn off your Facebook notifications and a lot of other apps on her phone. And since I'm a communications director, I can feel like I can tell you this. There's actually a way on your phone that you can go in and like make a bedtime or make a time where it's like a wind down time. So if you have an iPhone particularly, you can go in and you can say, I don't want any calls, any text messages from 9 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning. So I have found that really helpful for my work-life balance and for my sanity when I get home. So if you need help doing that, I'm happy to email you about it.
I want to add to what she said too about the notifications. So I have all of them turned off. The only thing I'll get is a text message and a phone call. I get no notifications of anything else. And that way my phone isn't going off. And when I go home, I put it on vibrate and stick it somewhere else. And so if I choose to check it, it's there. And if I'm home with my family, sometimes when I'm at work, I turn it off because I'm in session and I can't have my phone on anyway. And I get home and it stays off because I forget to turn it back on. But I always feel, I feel like if somebody really wanted to get a hold of me, they know how. So I feel like it's not like I feel this urgency. If somebody has to find me, how are they going to find? They will. I have a husband with a phone, and people that know me know how to find me if there's an emergency. So I don't stress about that, but it has made a big difference turning off all those notifications. So whoever said that, yay to you, because that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and Amanda was saying that she's found limiting her social media time helped as well. And with that, you can, on your phone, there's a way that you can make it, I put like 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. And you can even do it further, so you don't have to open up Instagram as soon as you go. But if you click on Instagram, it'll mute it and it'll say, are you sure you want to get on Instagram? So if you have an iPhone, look that up because it'll help you. We've learned that in our small group. It helped us a lot to learn to kind of say no and be like, you know what? No, I said that I wasn't going to do this. I'm going to put it down.
Yeah.
Lee said, I've not watched the news since last June.
Good for you, Lee.
Sarah Davis says, she always encourages her boys to take a salt bath, especially when they have a rough day at school. Debbie said, I hardly ever listen to the news. Amanda said, well, they're coming in too fast. No notifications except text or calls. She does the same thing. Lauren loves the suggestion of limiting the notifications. And Phyllis said, reading and going for walks if she has times in the evening are really great way for her to wind down.
But look at all of the things that all of you are commenting on right now. These are things that you are already doing, like Kim was talking about, that you're already incorporating into your life, and you're doing them, and all we're doing is saying, pay attention to them, because that's part of self-care. You're doing it. You're feeding yourself.
And if you're not already doing some of these wonderful suggestions, you can add them, but they don't add time to your day.
Right.
It's not like I gotta take another hour out of my day to go get my nails done. I actually stopped getting my nails done because it was just too much time. And I didn't want to spend that much time doing it anymore. So I just quit doing it. So for me, self-care was not doing that.
And you have some grace with yourself in the process, because sometimes we think that we're supposed to master it because it's supposed to make me feel good. And then we don't feel good. We feel stressed out, and then we don't want to do it. So have some grace with yourself in this process of learning how to be kind to yourself.
And Cindy Hughes, you have your hand raised. Are you wanting to say something? Okay. We have a couple of things in the chat as well. So Cindy, if you want to say something, you're welcome to. Jenny said, I used to meditate regularly. I don't have time or the space to be alone for that now. So I've switched to walking meditations you can find on YouTube. And to say that as well, someone earlier in the chat asked if y'all had any recommendations for meditations or a meditation app.
We do.
We do. So one of the things that we do, and so both of us are certified in brain spotting and EMDR. And so the short and dirty about that is that EMDR and brain spotting stimulate both hemispheres of your brain. So that means I have this one hemisphere of my brain that's super duper creative and one that's super logical. And when you stimulate both hemispheres at the same time, basically you're creating this amazing conversation between the most logical person you've ever met and the most creative person ever met. And you have this beautiful problem solving that happens. And so that's the short of how those two things work. There is this thing, if you look in whatever music platform that you have, if you can put in EMDR music and it'll come up with a bunch of that, or you can put in bilateral music. David Grand, he's one of the guys that he is the brain spotting guru. He has some music out. All of that's free on any music. It's on Amazon Prime. It's on whatever music platform you have.
Apple Music.
And what it actually is some of it's beeps, but I like the music. Some of it's music or nature sounds or whatever really fills you. And it moves back and forth. So it goes right and left really slowly. So it's not like nauseating and rocking you. It's just stimulating both hemispheres of your brain. And it actually feels like a massage for your brain. It feels beautiful. So you can put some headphones on while you're studying and turn it down low and you'll study deeper. Or you can put your headphones on while you're walking, and then you'll get into that a little differently. And there are guided meditations that have that in the background while somebody's walking you through a guided meditation. So there's a whole lot to choose from. So we recommend that to pretty much everybody that we see. That's one of the first things we talk about for self-care is relaxing your body. So, you get kind of shook up all day long or halfway through the day. If you can just relax your body, and then life starts to agitate again, you're not already up here, you're starting back at the bottom again. So you are already just kind of bringing yourself down throughout the day. So doing that a couple of times a day is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And I mean 5 minutes. I am not talking a 20-minute thing. I am 5 minutes is all you need, and just breathe into it. And your body will just be like, oh, thank you so much.
And somebody had asked about apps too. We're big fans of Insight Timer. It has guided meditations on there. I know that we were talking about moving away from technology, but maybe, to start your day with an intention or to kind of wind down like Kim was talking about. They have different guided meditations for different things that you might want to meditate on. But they also have sleepscapes or soundscapes. I fall asleep to one every night. I love thunderstorms and the sound of rain and crackling of thunder knocks me out. So you can program in different sounds that you like, and it helps to really regulate the body as well.
I'm laughing because when we travel together for work, we share a room, and she always brings her. I know, really, and she brings this loud storm, and I'm laying there, and I'm like, oh God, and she's got her music going, so I know that's coming. So she's always cranked up her rainstorm when we travel.
We have a lot of recommendations in the chat as well.
Okay.
Dawn York says that she has an app called Centering Prayer that's really good. Kelly Ray says there's a great book called The Art of Noticing, all filled with noticing meditation. Medication. Lee said Alexa will play great meditation music, and you can set a time limit. Jenny Peterson said if you're a mom, Expectful is a great meditation app. Phyllis says listening to calming meditation sounds has been something that she really enjoys.
Sounds too.
Kelly Ray also said yoga nidra. I'm not saying that right. Yes, is good on YouTube. Hold yourself to a standard of grace, not perfection. Sharon Heinrich said that she heard that quote at work today. Stephanie Elliott says, I listen to Optimal Living Daily podcasts. They're less than 10 minutes and are wonderful. I'll have to add that to my podcast list. Jenny Peterson says The Honest Guys on YouTube is really great to listen to as well. All kinds of music recommendations on here. And Judy says that she diffuses different essential oils in her home. And then there was a question I want to go back to. Someone asked what MDR and brain spotting is.
Go ahead.
I open that one. This is brain spotting and EMDR. Those are actually two complete workshops on their own, but I'm going to try to talk about it in a very short way. It's a way that if we have trauma, Steph and I are both self-proclaimed trauma therapists because that's our favorite thing, and we have a lot of training in that. Trauma comes in a lot of different forms, but first saying that trauma is not about events that happen in your life. It's about how you feel about events that have happened in your life. So the actual event for one person might seem like it's not that big of a deal, and for another person, it's a huge deal. Trauma, the events don't define trauma for us. It's something that makes us feel unsafe in some way. So it can be anything. So keep that in mind when just kind of put that in your pocket. So when you start to feel like maybe I'm overreacting to something, or I'm, have something spiraling in my head, that it's really not that big of a deal. Well, it is a big deal. It's a big deal for you, and that's important. But back to EMDR and brain spotting, there are ways of basically manipulating the brain to process those traumas. So it changes that feeling about the event. So let's say I have a car wreck and I can't get in cars anymore because I'm afraid of cars. My thought is I'm going to die if I get in a car. And I have these flashes of memory of being in this car wreck, and I can't get in a car, and my body starts to have a visceral feeling about being in this accident. Well, through these are just two techniques that we use that will actually take that information and desensitize it so I don't feel it in my body anymore. It becomes a memory instead of an active flashback kind of a feeling. And I move from that feeling and that thought of being, I'm unsafe, I can't get in a car, to, wow, that was a really bad experience, but I can be safe now. And so you change that shift from I'm unsafe in a car to I can be safe in a car, and it desensitizes that trauma. So in a nutshell, those are just two techniques that we use that do that. And both of them utilize bilateral stimulation of the brain. The stuff that we're giving you or we're talking about are very slow movements. So they're very relaxing movements, but in the office, when we're using those techniques, we're actually speeding up that movement. So it's stimulating your brain. And I would not recommend that somebody do that on their own, because it can be pretty activating. But so is that a full answer, you think? Lisa, you know a lot about this now too, because you've heard both of us speak on these often, but does that sum it up, or do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and we just, Lisa and I are here together. We talked about, you guys did a great talk on this before here at the church. And so we, after this, Lisa's going to get a combination of everything that was in the chat, all of the recommendations, and then a lot of this video. We're recording this, so we'll send it out as well. And then we can send out links to those chats that you guys had before that give you a lot more information. And if there's any links or anything you want us to send out with that, you can send them to Lisa.
Okay. And we can do a whole workshop on trauma. I mean, because when we say trauma, a lot of times people think that it's going to be the big T's, right? The big events like a car accident or burglary. Low frequency, high intensity events, but there can also be a lot of these little traumas, the little T's that we call them, that aren't necessarily intense, but happen at such a higher frequency throughout our life that have left a thumbprint also that we are able to help people regulate and heal from as well.
Thank you guys so much. We have so much awesome friends here, so many friends, and you've given us a lot to think about. We have a lot of door prizes that we want to get to. If you guys are on, Lisa's got a little basket here with numbers on them. I'm not going to cheat and pull my own, I promise. So thank you. If y'all have any more questions, you can feel free to put them in the chat and we can answer those really quick. But if you don't, we're going to get on to the door prizes.
And our card, you guys have our information and our cards. So if there's anything that anybody has any questions, they can email us directly or anything.
Thank you for your time.
Stay on, ladies, because if you aren't on, then you can't win. So stay on.
What did I do?
I just wanted to say a very special thanks to Kim and Stephanie for joining the Gastonia Parish Nurse Ministry again for this wonderful presentation.
As Alyssa said, I'll do a follow-up email and include some of the recommendations of the apps, of things that people want to share, and self-care tips. We'll put that in there. Links to the talks that Stephanie and Kim did in our previous mental health conferences. I think you'll benefit from those. So I'll get all of that. I will also send out a survey,
and I hope you guys will do it. Maybe we could do it as a Survey Monkey to make it really easy with just
little questions like what other topics might you like for a seminar such as this, or would you like to be on my direct email distribution list so that when I have an event
you'll be you'll hear firsthand. So please take a few minutes to respond to the survey that I sent out. I'll try to do that tomorrow.
I also just want to say this event could not have happened without sponsorships and donations. So my sponsors for this event are Brookdale Assisted Living, and I just want to name Janet Chief. She has been most supportive to me on many things. The First Presbyterian Church,
Turn your volume up, they can't hear you very well.
Sorry,
it's been
trying to balance out the,
Hello. I don't know if anybody can hear me or not. This is Cindy.
hey Cindy, we can hear you.
Okay, I was having trouble getting in. I was messed up. But anyway, I wanted to thank you for everything and nice talk with y'all. And I anyway, one thing I've done is, different people mention about the Dr. Tills and so forth. And my husband keeps me replenished and all that, and it helps a lot. I get the water about as warm as I can stand it. And am I getting too close to the phone?
That's okay.
I'm not trying to scare anybody, because it seems the closer you get to the phone, the scarier you become. And well, I'm talking about me. But anyway, but and my little dog, he has learned to say I love you, and he's a mess. But that gives me a thrill to my day. And I don't know, can you see him?
We can.
That's Nemo. Hey,
We-
Nemo, I love you. I love you. I
Cindy,
love
we appreciate you sharing.
But anyway, y'all forgive me with the unmade bed, but my husband's in there watching TV, so I can't go in there. But anyway, thank y'all, and I'm so glad for the gathering, and I hope that we can do this more often.
I hope so too. So I am just going to go through my sponsors again. I want a special thanks to Brookdale Assisted Living, Janet Cheek, a wonderful colleague and supporter, the First Presbyterian Church of Gastonia, the Presbyterian Women, First United Methodist Church Gastonia, the Adult Ministries Group, of course, the Gastonia Parish Nurse Ministry. And when I list that out, it's really the funding that came through the Community Foundation. So any donations that were made through that last year were to contribute to this. Hospice and Palliative Care of the Charlotte region, Catherine Stiers, very supportive. And Morningside Assisted Living, Senior Care, Joy Wiley. So I want to thank my sponsors. And then I have some great door prizes that I'm going to go through in just a minute. One more special thanks to Bruce Tyndall. He's the food service director here at First United Methodist Church. And I talked to him a couple of months ago about my vision for the charcuterie and just kind of creating this atmosphere. And so he helped me bring my vision to the reality by, ordering the products. And we had a host of volunteers on Monday putting these together. So I couldn't do this as a single person. As they say, it takes a village to pull something like this together and bring it all. And so I appreciate all my volunteers. You know who you are. And Bruce, of course, for his consideration and working with me when, originally my flyer said the first 100 and the numbers kept growing and I raised it to 150. And he said, that's not that easy to just make a jump like that, but we worked it out. And so anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed that. The Gastonia Parish Nurse Ministry, to put on events like this, I rely completely on donations. And so if there's ever an opportunity that you feel like you want to make some sort of donation or love offering, the best time is to do it until April 23rd through the Gastonia Community Foundation, and they match. So for $1 that you might give, I might get $1.30 toward the ministry. And all of that goes out to community outreach and programs such as this, honorariums and giveaways. So I just wanted to say that. Ladies, I am so delighted.
I've enjoyed this.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thrilled to have everybody here. Just a reminder, when I send the follow-up email and survey, please take a couple of minutes. It'll help me to have more programs like this and, kind of cater to what you want to hear about, or if you have a speaker, or if you are a speaker on a topic of interest, let me know that too. So I'm thrilled of the turnout. I'm thrilled that you guys took the time for yourself. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm open to, any and all constructive feedback. So thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful night, and God bless you all. Take care.